Hi everyone, we are 郑度倩、任小瑞、董玉雪 and 蒋竹倩 from Karting Singapore. Today we are excited to share our interview with Marcus, the founder of Achock, a fashion lifestyle brand. In this talk, we will learn about his journey as an entrepreneur, from his childhood inspiration and early retail experiences to the challenges he faced and the strategy he used to build a well-known brand. Thank you, Max, for joining us today. Let's go start with the interview. The first question is where were any childhood or teenager experiences that first made you aware of opportunity in fashion or apparel?
Okay, thank you. So I think my awareness of fashion and the opportunities in clothing started much earlier than I realized at the time. I grew up in a fairly ordinary neighborhood, and yet it was not glamorous at all. Still, I was fascinated by the way people dressed when I was young. Moreover, I remember being a kid who always noticed how my friends at school expressed themselves through their clothes. For instances, some would wear bright sneakers that stood out. On the other hand, others layered jackets and hoodies in creative ways. Thus, it felt like you could tell a lot about someone's personality without them saying a word. My parents were not in the fashion business, yet they encouraged creativity in small ways. Meanwhile, my mom liked to sew, and sometimes she altered our clothes to fit better or look different. Also, I would sit next to her and watch how she worked the fabric. As a result, I began to understand that clothes were more than something you put on in the morning. In fact, they could be changed, improved, and personalized. Finally, I did not have the vocabulary for it then, but I was learning about design and customization. One moment that really stands out was when I was about 13, and it still feels vivid. Afterwards, I saved up money from doing small jobs in the neighborhood and bought a vintage jacket from a thrift shop. Although it was oversized and a little worn out, I saw potential in it. Then I cleaned it up, patched one of the sleeves, and painted a small design on the back. Later, when I wore it to school, people noticed right away. Moreover, friends asked where I got it from, and a couple even asked if I could make one for them. At last, that was the first time I realized there might be more to this than just a personal hobby. During my teenage years, I also started paying attention to how trends move, and it became part of my daily thoughts. Whenever I walk through the city, I look at stores' windows and notice that certain colors or cuts appear everywhere at the same time. Though I did not understand the industry mechanics yet, I was curious about how ideas travel from one place to another. Because of that, I wondered why some styles caught on while others disappeared. Meanwhile, I began sketching outfits in a notebook without any professional skills. Finally, it was just to play with combinations and ideas, but it gave me a sense of creativity. There was a summer job that had a big influence on me, and it shaped how I thought about fashion. After that, I worked in a small local clothing shop where I folded jeans, arranged displays, and helped customers. Although it was not a glamorous job, it gave me a close-up view of how customers choose what to buy. Meanwhile, I noticed that people were often drawn to something because it felt unique. In fact, they would sometimes pay a little bit more if it gives them that special feeling. That idea stayed with me. It told me that in fashion, standing out could be more valuable than just competing on price. Looking back, all these small experiences built a foundation within me without realizing it. By the time I was an adult, I had already developed a habit of looking at clothes, not just for their function, but for the story and the personality they carry. The curiosity in that love for individual expression was that eventually led me to seriously think about creating something of my own in the fashion world.
Okay, thank you for your answer. And the last question is, before founding Achock, how did you experience working in the retail or apparel industry help you develop your brand sensitive and industry observation?
Well, before I started Achock, I had spent several years working in different parts of the retail and clothing industry. And I think those years shaped my understanding of what makes a brand stand out. They also trained me to see the details that most customers didn't see. One of my earliest jobs was in a small streetwear store. It was not a high-end place, but it had a loyal crowd. I learned how important it was to know your customer personally. They will remember that styles they like, what size they wore, and even call them when something new arrived that matched their taste. That kind of relationship built trust, and it taught me that the brand is not just a logo. It's a feeling people have when they interact with you. Later, I worked for a larger retail chain that sold a mix of clothing and accessories. The scale was different, yet everything was about system, from inventory management to visual merchandising. I saw how even the smallest change in store layout could affect sales. Moving a display to the front could double the attention a product got. This made me more aware of how presentation shapes perception and how a brand story can be told not only through marketing campaigns but through every touch point in the customer experience. There was also a period where I worked on the supply side, helping coordinate orders between manufacturers and retailers. That was an eye-opener. I started to understand the timelines, the cost structures, and the importance of negotiating terms that works for both sides. It made me realize that a strong brand is supported by a strong back end. If the supply chain is unreliable, no amount of good design will save you in the long run. I also spent time around independent designers. Some were incredibly talented but struggled because they did not know how to connect their work to a larger audience. Others were great at building hype but lacked product consistency. Watching both successes and failures taught me that brand sensitivity is about balance. You need creative originality, but you also need to deliver consistently so customers know that they can count on you. Another thing I picked up from these experiences was how quickly trends can change. Working in a fast-moving retail environment, I learned to spot early signs of a shift in customer preferences. It could be a certain cut of jeans, a new shade of color, or a state or a style of graphic prints that suddenly started selling faster. If you caught it early, you can adjust your buying or design choices and stay ahead of competition. By the time I was ready to start Achock, I had collected a toolkit of insights. I knew how to read the market, how to create a consistent brand image, how to keep operations running smoothly, and how to connect with customers on a human level. All of those skills came from being on the ground, listening, observing, and being willing to learn from both the successes and the mistakes I saw along the way.
Thank you for your answer. And for the next question, what led you to decide to found Achock around 2015? What key market signal or personal drivers drove this decision?
The decision to start Achock in 2015 did not happen overnight. It was more like a build-up of different moments and feelings that finally came together at the right time. I had been in the clothing and retail space for years, and during that time, I kept seeing the same pattern. So many brands were playing it safe. They're producing what everyone else was chasing that month, and it all started to feel like a bit soulless to me. I remember walking into a few stores one season and thinking, if you cover up the labels, you would not even know what brand which this was from. This was the first market signal that really stuck in my mind, that the lack of differentiation told me there was space for a brand that had a stronger point of view. Something that did not just follow trends, but something that shaped it on its own way. Another factor was what I was seeing online. Around 2014 and 2015, social media was starting to change the way people discovered and interpret trends. Instagram especially was becoming a huge platform for fashion. And I could see that small independent labels were building real moving without massive budgets. That was exciting to me, because it meant you could connect directly with your audience and could tell a story without relying solely on traditional retail techniques. On a personal level, I had reached a point when I wanted more creative control and it felt necessary. Even though working for other companies had been great for learning, it still meant I was following someone else's vision. Besides, as ideas were styled and I wanted to shape my own way. At the same time, I imagined how to build a brand personality that felt original. Also, I thought about how to talk to customers in a voice that really connected. Finally, I wanted the freedom to put those ideas into practice without limitation. There was also a lifestyle element and it mattered a lot to me. Because of that, I wanted to create something that felt authentic to me. I've always been drawn to clothes that mix style with personality, pieces that feel like they have a story. I did not see enough of that in the mainstream market, so I thought, why not build it myself? The timing was also important. The cost of setting up an online store had come down. Tools for managing inventory and shipping become more accessible. The idea of something small and growing organically organically felt realistic. I knew I was not going to compete with big brands of volume, but compete on identity, quality, and connection. Though it was really a mix of market signals and personal ambition, the market was telling me there was a room for something different. And my own drive was telling me that I had reached the point where I could take the leap. Founding Achock was a way of answering both filling a gap I saw out there and finally stepping into a role where I could shape a brand from the ground up in a way that felt true to me.
That sounds interesting. In the earlier days of Achock, how did you leverage limited funding and resources to launch and support the brand? And was there any particularly creative financing or cost-saving method?
When I started Achock, the reality was that I did not have a big pool of investors behind me or a large amount of capital to play with. I had some personal savings and a clear vision, but I knew that if I wanted to take the brand to take off, I had to be smart with every dollar. The first thing I did was decide what mattered most in those days and I could do without. For me, the most important thing were product quality, brand identity, and getting in front of the right audience. I kept my initial product line small and focused. Instead of launching dozens of designs, I started with a few pieces that I believed really reflected the Achock identity. This meant I could order smaller batches, reduce the risk of unsold inventory, and put more attention into the details of each item. At the same time, I worked closely with a small network of suppliers who were willing to give me flexible payment terms. Because I had built relationships with them during my time in the industry, I could get materials of production started before paying the full amount, which kept my cash flow healthier. For marketing, I avoided expensive campaigns that focus on building an organic presence. Social media became my showroom. I personally managed the brand Instagram created content, reached out to micro-influencers, and encouraged our first customer to build photos of themselves. That user-generated content gave us credibility without spending thousands on professional shoots. I also collaborated with brands who were photographers, models, offering them product instead of cash. Those collaborations kept costs low but still gave us high-quality visuals that matched the brand aesthetics. I also operated lean when it comes to my workspace. Instead of renting an office or studio right away, I worked from home and used shared workspaces when needed. Storage was in my garage and living room for the first year. It was not glamorous, but it also meant that almost all my early revenues could be reinvested into production and brand development. Another creative approach was testing designs through pre-order. I will post a new design online, gauge the interest, and if people are committed to buying, I will move forward with production. This reduced the risk of producing items that would not sell and helped me understood what my audience wanted before spending money on manufacturing. I also rely heavily on my own skills rather than on outsourcing. I designed the first version of the website myself using an e-commerce platform, handled customer service personally, and learned that basic product photography so that I could update the online store without paying for every shoot. Looking back, those early decisions were all about prioritizing what truly added value and cutting out unnecessary expenses. Every cost-saving method was tied to mainly maintaining quality and building the brand image. It taught me that resource limitation can actually be a blessing because they force you to be creative and focused. By keeping things lean and using the resources I had already to negotiate for what I was able to get off the ground and build a solid foundation without putting the brand debt from day one.
Thank you so much. And how do you determine that Achock's brand style and the product design are highly consistent with market demand?
Well, when I think about whether Achock brand style and market design really match market demand, I always start with listening. From the very beginning, I make it a habit to talk directly to my customer, whether that was through our social media channels, pop-up events, or just informal conversation in the early days when I was handpicking and shipping orders myself. People were very honest when they created a space where they felt comfortable sharing what they like and what they do not like, and what they wish they could find in the market. The second thing I rely is on my observation. I pay close attention to trends, not just in fashion, but in culture as a whole. Music, art, social media memes, even street photography can tell you where people's taste is going. For Achock, I have always tried to position the brand in a way that feels ahead of the curve without losing accessibility. That means we might not pick up certain color palettes, silhouettes, or graphic styles before it became mainstream, but we also make it sure it still feels wearable for our audience. Data also plays a huge role. We track which product sells faster, which sizes run out first, and which styles get the most engagement online. For example, if a particular hoodie design gets twice as many shares and saves on Instagram compared to others, I know that aesthetics is connecting with people. At the same time, if you launch something we personally love, but it lacks in both sales and engagement, we take that as a sign that might not be aligned with what the market wants. I also believe in testing ideas on small scale before committing to a big product run. Early on, we will produce limited quantities of a new design, release it as an exclusive drop, and then watch how fast it moves and how people play in real life. Those small experiments give us immediate feedback, and they also create a sense of excitement around the brand. Another factor is a balance between originality and familiarity. Customers want something that feels fresh, but they also want to recognize it as part of the world. I think of it as a conversation between the brand and the audience. We bring new ideas to the table, we present them in a language our customer already understood, and enjoy. That way, we are not chasing every short-lived trend, but we are also not standing still. Finally, I trust my team instinct. We are all deeply immersed in fashion and creative culture, and when several of us feel strongly about design, it usually means we are tapping something real. Of course, we facilitate that instinct with market feedback. But that combination of gut feeling, cultural awareness, and hard data is what keeps us in sync with our audience. In the end, staying consistent with market demand is not about guessing or following every trend blindly. It's about listening closely, watching carefully, testing smartly, and staying true to the core of what the brand stands for. That approach can help Achock grow in a way that feels authentic both to us and to the people who wear our designs.
In the purpose of collaborating with designer or online retail stores in 2019, what roles did the strategic alliance play in the brand influence and resource integration?
Well, when we started collaborating with independent designers and selected offline retail stores in 2019, the idea was very simple. We want to take Achock out of the online space, and we hope that putting it directly into the hands of people who might not have found us otherwise. Then working with designers brought fresh creative energy to the brand. Although they challenge us, they help us build product in a different way. Besides, they push us to think beyond our usual style. Meanwhile, we were encouraged to explore new cuts, fabrics, and color combinations. As a result, that kind of creative change made the brand feel more dynamic and relevant. Partnering with offline retail stores had a very different situation. It's equally important effect as well. These stores had already loyal customers who trusted them, and by playing connection in their space, we were growing some of their trust. He gave people a chance to touch the fabric, try on the clothes, and understand the quality in a way that online picture can never fully communicate. We noticed that after these in-store experiences, many customers went on to follow us online and become repeated buyers. On a resource perspective, the alliances allowed us to expand without the huge investment of opening our own physical store. The retailers handled the space, the staff, and the local marketing, while we brought in products, brand identity, and our growing online audience. It was a shared effort where each side contributed its strengths. The designer gained a new platform for their work. The retailers got something fresh to offer their customers, and Achock reached new audiences while strengthening our credibility. It also taught me about the power of community in fashion. By connecting with people who were already trusted voices in their own circle, we were able to amplify a message far more effectively than we could have done it alone. Looking back, 2019 was a turning point because it proved that strategic alliances can be more than just a sales tactic. They can be a real force for building brand culture, sharing resources, and creating long-term relationship that benefits everyone involved.
Okay, the next question is, what testing pop-ups stories or brand licensing model in 2020 to 2021? And how did you balance the speed of expansion with maintaining brand consistency?
Well, when we first started experimenting with pop-up stores and licensing in 2020, it was exciting because it gave us a chance to reach new audiences quickly without committing to a full permanent location. But at the same time, I knew that moving too fast could put the brand at risk if the experiences or the products were not consistent with what our customers already knew and loved from online. The first thing I did was make sure every pop-up and license space looked and felt like it. We worked on very clear brand guidelines that cover everything from store layouts and lighting to the way clothes were displayed and the style of packaging. I personally visited the first few locations to see them through the eyes of the customer. If something fell off, we fixed it right away. We also kept the product range tight for those test locations. Instead of trying to show everything, focus on our stronger pieces, the one that represented at style and quality best. This made it easier to control quality, ensure customers got a true feel for the brand, even in a temporary setting. Training was another big part of it. Whether it was short-term team, or pop-up, or partner in a licensing deal, we spent time making sure they understood the story of the brand, the values behind it, and we wanted our customers to feel when they interacted with us. I've always believed that people are as much of a brand consistency as a product themselves. Finally, I treated those pop-up and licensing deals as learning opportunities, not just sales channel. We gathered feedback from customers, tracked what sold best, and listened closely to how people describe their experience. That helped us fine-tune both the product mix and the presentation for future expansion. So the balance comes from being selective. We expanded into opportunities that make sense and could be executed to our standards. If that means saying no to some offers that look good on paper. For me, brand consistency is what makes speed sustainable. Without it, fast growth just leads to faster mistakes.
So, how has your rose-colored lines changed since the founding of your brand? And how has your mindset shifted when making major decisions?
Oh, that's a very good question. Well, when I first started Achock, my approach was very cautious. I was putting my own savings into a brand, and at the time, every dollar felt like it could stretch as far as possible. Focus was on protecting the resources that I had and making sure that every move we made was backed by something tangible, like proven demands or clear customer feedback. I did not want to make big leaps without seeing some kind of evidence that it was the right choice. In those early days, risk felt more personal because failure would have meant losing not only money, but also the time, energy, and reputation I invested. I would spend weeks debating on a single product launch or marketing campaign, worried about the possibility of it not working. It was a survival mindset. And while it kept me from making reckless mistakes, it also slowed me down on some opportunities. As the brand grew and we began to see consistent sales and loyal customers, my views on risk started to change. I began to see that taking calculated risks would actually stand up our growth and create new possibilities. I learned to look at risk not as something to avoid entirely, but as something to manage. The key was understanding that potential upside, the worst case scenario, and whether we had the resources and resilience to handle it if things did not go as planned. Now, when I make a major decision, my mindset is more about building for the long term rather than just protecting what we have. I ask myself what kind of brand we want to be in 5 to 10 years, and whether this decision helps us get closer to that vision. I still run the numbers and make sure that we have a safety net, but I'm much more comfortable stepping into a new territory if it aligns with our values and long-term strategy. The biggest shift has been moving from mindset of what if we fail to what will it take to succeed. The shift in mindset allowed me to be more decisive, to move faster, and to see risk as an essential part of growing a brand that stands out in the competitive market.
Okay, the next question is throughout Achock's history, was there a major challenge that nearly derailed you? And what was the most important lesson you learned from that experience?
Looking back, one of the biggest challenges we faced came in second year after launching Achock. We were started to see real traction online, orders were coming in faster than we expected, and our social media presence was growing every week. On the surface, it looked everything was going well, but behind the scenes, we were struggling to keep up. Our supply chain was stretched thin, our production partners were missing deadlines, and our inventory system was not built for that kind of volume. There was a time that we had to delay several customer orders by more than 2 weeks. For a fashion brand that was still building its reputation, and it felt that it was a disaster. I remember reading some of the frustrated customer messages late at night and feeling the pressure being built. It was the first time I seriously thought we might lose the momentum we had worked so hard and we fought so hard for. The hardest part was knowing that the problem was not the product of the brand, it was our internal system. That made it even more frustrating because I realized we were letting people down, not because of our demand, but because we're not prepared for it. At that moment, I had to make a choice: slow down our marketing to reduce demand, or invest quickly in fixing the foundation. We started to fix the foundation. It meant pausing certain launches, finding more reliable production partners, and upgrading our inventory and logistic processes. It was stressful and expensive, but it gave us a structure to handle much larger order volumes later on. The most important lesson I learned was that growth can be dangerous if your infrastructure is not ready for it. It's tempting to focus on bringing in more customers, but if you cannot deliver consistency, it will hurt you in the long run. I also learned that being transparent with customers during tough times helps preserve trust. We communicated openly about the delays, offered compensation where we could, and many of those customers are still with us today. The experience taught me to think ahead, to prepare for the next stage before it arrives, and to see challenges not as a sign of failure, but as an opportunity to build a stronger business.
Over the next 3 to 5 years, will you prioritize continued international or national expansion, or will you focus more on deepening your existing user base and brand community? And what are your core goals?
For the long-term goals of Achock plan, I see it as a brand that has an opportunity to grow in both reach and depth. We have built a strong identity in the streetwear and lifestyle space, and I'm proud of how far we've came. I believe that the next stage of growth is not just about planning flex location. It's about making sure that the brands feel even more meaningful to the people who are really connected. For me, deepening our existing user base and brand community will be the main focus in the short term. I want our customers to feel like they are part of something bigger than just a clothing label. That means creating experience both online and offline that bring people together. It could be both online, it could be exclusive drops, community-driven collaborations, or events where our audience can engage directly with the creative side of our brand. The stronger the relationship with our core community, the more naturally our influence will expand to new markets. That said, expansion is still on the horizon, but it will be more strategic. I'm not looking to grab every possible market. Instead, we will study where our brand resonates most and ensure we can support those markets with the right supply chain. Local partnerships and cultural understanding. Whether that is new region within the country or carefully selected international cities, the goal is to grow in a way that feels authentic and sustainable. In the next 3 to 5 years, my core goals are clear. First, strengthen the brand community through consistent storytelling, high-quality products, and meaningful engagement. Second, improve the customer experience at every touch point, whether the website to packaging to after-sales service. Third, continue innovating in design so that Apple stays ahead trends without losing its voice. And finally, building an operational strength to support both community engagement and expansion when the timing is right. If Achock could achieve these goals, we will only be bigger and stronger. We will be a brand that people are proud to wear and be associated with. And so where they are at the moment, that is the vision I'm working towards every day.
There I have another two questions. The first is fashion often gets criticized for its impact on the environment. Have you considered bringing sustainability in your design and production or supply chain? How does that affect your brand and your relationship with customers?
This is something that has become very important to me. In the early days, I was focused mostly on survival and getting our name out there. But once Achock became more stable, started asking myself how we could grow in a way that actually helps instead of harms. The first thing I looked at was design. I told the team that we should create pieces that last both in quality and in style. Instead of chasing trends that fade in a season, we focus on hoodies, jackets, and shirts that people can wear for years. We notice that customers appreciate this. It changes the way they see the brand. It feels more honest, not just chasing quick sales. On the production side, we became to test recycled fabrics. For example, we worked with a supplier that uses recycled cotton. It was more expensive than normal cotton, but I felt it was the right step. We even shared a story with our customers, showing them pictures from the factory and explaining the process. Surprisingly, people responded really well. They did not complain about a slightly higher price. Instead, they felt proud to support it. We also changed our packaging. In the beginning, we used simple plastic mailers. Now we use biodegradable materials and even offer a program where customers can return the packaging to us for a small discount on the next order. It's not perfect yet, but it starts the conversation and makes the customer feel part of the journey. I will admit it's not easy. Sustainable material costs more and sometimes customers will still want the cheapest option. But I believe the younger generation especially care about this. They want their clothes to stand for something. For Achock, sustainability is not just a trend to follow, it's a way to show that we are thinking about the future, about the planet, and about building trust with the people who wear our clothes. In the end, I think customers remember more than the design, they remember the values. If they feel we are doing a part for the environment, they connect with us on a deeper level. That makes the brand stronger in the long run.
As a co-coach, how do you building a team culture that keep the creative freedom alive, while as making sure everything runs effectively?
I believe culture is the backbone at Achock. Fashion lives on creativity, but without strong execution, those ideas stay on paper. Balancing the two is always my biggest job. In the early stage, we were just a few friends working together, so everything was loose. But as the team got bigger, I had to set out some structure. We created basic processes for design, production, and marketing. That was everyone knew their responsibility and we did not waste time. I also wanted people to feel free to share ideas, so every week we hold what we call an inspiration session. Anyone can bring sketches, photos, or even observation from the streets. It's open to everyone, not just designers. This keeps the energy alive and let ideas come from different angles. Feedback is also key. I always tell my team that mistakes are fine, silence is not. If something does not go well, we discuss and why without blaming anyone. Maybe the design was too risky or maybe the marketing was weak. What matters is that we learn together and keep moving. I also try to reward the whole team, not just individuals. When the product becomes a hit, I remind everyone that it was a combined effort of design, supply chain, marketing, and customer service. When possible, we share profits or give people a chance to attend fashion shows abroad. These opportunities are motivating because they show that we value their growth as much as their brand growth. Leadership, in my view, is about setting an example. If I respect people's ideas and show discipline in my own work, the team will reflect that. If I lose focus, the team will too. So I try to model the balance we want to achieve. The culture I want for Achock is simple. It should feel like a creative studio where ideas are free to flow, but also like a professional workshop where we can turn those ideas into real high quality products quickly. When both sides comes together, that is when the brand is at its strongest.
Okay, thank you for taking the time to attend this interview. Achock entrepreneurial journey shows that fashion is not just about following trends. It's also about building a sense of truth and connecting with the community. At the same time, we have to face challenges with determination and resilience. From childhood ideas to strategic relationships, from starting carefully to growing confidently. This founder's story shows how passion, observation, and perseverance can come together to build a sustainable brand. Thank you so much again for this interview.
You're welcome.